Hello and welcome back to Whispers from the Countryside. If you're new here, I'm Colleen, and this is my weekly update where I share what it's like to live in the beautiful French countryside, the magic of animal communication, our stone barn renovation, and of course my wonderful cats. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's dive into this week's Whispers. So if you subscribe to my newsletter, which I hope that you do, you will have already heard that this past week has been a bit odd and certainly not how I was expecting it to go. I'm recording this Thursday morning just to give you some context. So last Tuesday, so a week and 2 days ago, I flew out to the UK because my sister's husband had passed away. It was kind of expected because he had been ill for a very long time. He didn't have cancer. He didn't have any sort of heart disease, bearing in mind he was not even yet 60 years old. What he did have was early onset Alzheimer's, and he's had it for well over 10 years. A disease which we really only associate with elderly people, but there is such a thing as early onset Alzheimer's. And he steadily deteriorated until he had to go into a care home. My sister cared for him herself for a very, very long time, and he passed away in the home. He had deteriorated a lot in the last month, so was seemingly oblivious of where he was and who anybody was. So one can only hope that he passed away peacefully. So I flew out to UK so that I could attend his celebration of life. My sister didn't want a funeral; she wanted a celebration of life, and with her friends and her husband's friends from university and just an incredible bunch of people. It was a fabulous ceremony. They had a slideshow in the corner with photographs of him throughout his entire life, some which I'd never seen before, with all his university friends, him growing up, him with his university friends, he and my sister when they got married, and I was even a little delighted to see a family photograph with myself and my husband, my mum, my brother, my sister, and my sister's husband while I was there, which was lovely. And as much as it was an emotional ceremony, it was beautifully done, and there were a lot of laughs and a lot of fond memories recounted, and also a lot of tears. My sister is an incredibly strong woman. I've always looked up to her because she has just an incredible strength of character. But it's always hard to see somebody like that when they're really struggling with grief. And I felt for her. I really, really did. And it feels like nothing you do is enough to comfort someone in that state. But I know she'll get through it. I know she will. I was planning on staying until this Friday, and I was going to have some time with my brother, who's also over in the UK. But my husband's father, who you may or may not know if you've been following me for a while, has been terminally ill for a while and has also been steadily deteriorating. And sadly, on the Saturday, the day before my brother-in-law's celebration of life, my husband had the call from the hospice care staff. His father was at home, but the hospice nurse visits regularly, to suggest that he moves his ticket forward because he was due to fly out early March, suggesting that he moves his ticket forward as a matter of great urgency. So I changed my ticket to fly back on Monday night. So I had my brother-in-law's celebration of life on the Sunday. I flew back on Monday night with a view to taking my husband to the airport yesterday morning to fly out to UK. But sadly, his father passed away on Monday morning. So we weren't expecting it to be quite that quick, although you just never know with these things. He's been such a fighter for such a long time. My husband was only talking to him 4 days prior to that. And, you know, he's been very frail for a long time. But the strength of character, all the doctors were shocked and amazed. The palliative care team were shocked and amazed. And I will just forever view him as a legend, because he was given 5 months to live 3 years ago. And he outlived all his predictions. Anyway, he's gone now, and you know, things can now start closing, I guess, because that's the thing with anticipatory grief. It goes on for so long, and you everything kind of gets put on hold. Anyway, so apologies for the late video, for the late newsletter, for the less than styled hair and lack of makeup, but you know, things are just hey, I'm being authentic. I'm being authentic, right? So yeah, so this week's update is tinged with a little sadness. But anyway, I'm going to go through our sections as per usual. I shall give you an update on life in the countryside, the stone barn, the cats, and we'll see how it goes. So on to the next chapter. Okay, so one of the updates I usually give is on life in the countryside, because things tick along in the countryside at a slightly slower pace than other areas. However, as you've now heard, I was not here in the past week. So all I'm going to say is that being back in the UK in a very busy part of the it wasn't London, to be fair, which I'm very grateful for, because that would have been complete overwhelm. Because I'm so used to being here, we don't have any neighbors. You know, the postman hoots when he comes down the road. If we have a car down the road, maybe once a week, it's a lot. There's no sounds around us other than the sounds of birds and trees and the stream that's, you know, bubbling its way along. There just isn't anything. It's so calm and it's so peaceful. And to be back in the UK, to have all those cars continuously and all the people and the traffic jams and just the volume of noise and things around you, it was really very, very noticeable. Also noticeable was the amount of litter on the side of the roads. You know, I forget, we don't see litter here. If we do, it's very, very rare. But on the sides of the roads and the motorways, there was just litter in the UK, just litter. And I also noticed, oddly, that the sides of all the roads up until maybe waist height was just black. And I understand that to be from the volume of cars and just all the grime that comes from that kind of volume of traffic was very, very noticeable. And, you know, here we have all the flowers and the hedgerows and flowers on the side of the road. And I was so grateful to come back and experience that sort of feeling where everything is just much slower and more relaxed here. I am super, super grateful to be living in the countryside. It's also a lot warmer here than it is in the UK, only by a few degrees. I think we had maybe 3 degrees in the UK, and here we're currently sitting at about 8 or 9. I have got the fire on downstairs just to get some warmth into the house. But it is very, very different. So I'm grateful for the difference in pace. I will be doing a couple of videos for you to show you life around here, since while my husband is away in UK, he's gone for 5 weeks. So the renovation will come to a standstill. So yeah, I shall be giving you some more information about life in the countryside. So while I was away, obviously I wasn't doing any animal communication sessions. However, I did hear from a client while I was away, and you will be able to read more about that if you subscribe to my newsletter. My newsletter has exclusive details of my animal communication readings to try and tempt you to subscribe. So there is a link in the description below. So please do subscribe if you want to learn more about that. But it got me thinking about, as was this animal's case, this animal was close to transition, and he had some very specific requests before he passed. And this is very common with animals who are about to transition. It's lovely if guardians, if the pet guardians can ask them what they need. What do you need? It's a bit like my father-in-law, I guess. We knew he was about to pass, and the hospice nurse will come round and make sure that he's comfortable, will make sure that he's not in any pain, make sure that, he's all kind of healthy and clean and everything that he needs to be to make his passing as pleasant as can be. And it's the same with animals. And I'm able to do that for your animal. I'm able to ask your animal how they're feeling, if they're in any pain, if they need anything. Are they comfortable? Do they need a blanket? Are they feeling the cold specifically because they're getting ready to transition? And quite often animals will be, firstly, they'll be really, really grateful because they're like, oh, thank goodness I can say, please stop trying to give me that food because it's disgusting and I want to pass away not having eaten that horrible food. No, I'm joking. That never happens. But it's that type of thing. And also what I quite often ask on behalf of the guardian of the animal is, how will we know? How will we know when you are ready to pass? That horrible feeling that we have when an animal is elderly and we know that they're coming to their time, something we can't offer to humans. We couldn't say to my father-in-law, gosh, do you want a little bit of help because your quality of life is really crappy? That doesn't, well, I said it does exist in some countries, I believe, but that doesn't exist in most countries. But with animals, as we're all aware, we take our animals to the vet, or we get our vet to come to our home, and we put our animals to sleep. And there's always that horrible feeling with people when they don't know if that time's right. I think there's a saying about rather one day too early than a week too late. But how do you know? And people are often traumatized. One of the questions I mostly get asked when I do readings with animals who have already passed is, did I do right by you? Did I put you to sleep at the right time? Would you have liked to have stayed longer? Because people are really traumatized by that. So I can ask these animals these questions before they pass. And this animal, this client, going back a bit, this client that had contacted me, this animal had given a very, very specific sign that they would be ready. And sure enough, this moment arrived, and the lady remembered it from the reading. I only did the reading in early January. And she honored this animal's wish, but it's what she did for her animal beforehand, before she called the vet out, which was incredibly touching. But you'll have to subscribe to the newsletter to read about that. What was lovely while I was in the UK is I did stay with my best friend for a couple of nights before I saw my sister. And my best friend has 4 animals. She has 3 dogs and a cat. And the cat deserves a special mention because this cat, Kit Kat, is in my book. Kit Kat has a chapter in my upcoming book, but she is also the only animal that I have met personally out of all the animals that will be in that book, because she's my best friend's cat, and there was a particular reading that I did with Kit Kat that was really extremely funny, and it just had to be included in the book. So that was actually lovely. It was lovely seeing the animals. They're two little Jack Russells, elderly now, I think 13 and 15, I think she said. And then there's a brown lab who I believe is 10 or 11, but still acts like a puppy. So she has that kind of puppy attitude to everything. And then there's Kit Kat, who's a regal old lady at 15. So it was lovely still at least seeing animals, because I wasn't at home, and I missed our lot. So bless them. Anyway, so what's next? The barn renovation. Before John had to fly to the UK, he was busy putting metalwork in between the beams in the ceiling in our living room. So if you've been following for some while, the living room is the current room that we are converting. And in last week's episode, I explained about what had been done on the walls, and that he'd started the ceiling. He started trying to put plasterboard up, but that did not work because the beams in the barn are not machined, so therefore they're not straight. They literally, some of them still had bark on them. So that means they're like trees. They're not straight. So putting plasterboard just wasn't working because it ended up nightmare. So we use a metalwork, and I included some photos in last week's episode. However, I will put a video in shortly. So it's always good to start a video with a cat, right? This is Kinky. But this video is not about Kinky. This video is about the ceiling and what John has done in the time that I was away. So you can see he's put that first kind of coat on to seal the metalwork. He's done that strip. He's done, this next strip. And this strip he got so far with. So let me just go back a bit. He's still got that strip to do. That strip to do, and one last one. So it does take a while, but at least it's on the way. I reckon I should have a go. What do you think? So he's finished all the metal work in between all the beams, and he's now starting to put it's like a sealing layer, sealing as in SEAL, a sealing layer of plaster on the metalwork to seal all the holes, and then he will plaster. But sadly, because he's now in the UK and will be there for 5 weeks, the renovation will stop. I work full time, and I can't do anything. I can't do anything in the renovation. I could help him if he were here, but I'm very tempted to try and mix up a bucket of the stuff and give it a go, thinking, well, what's there to lose, right? If I just waste a bucket of stuff, it's not going to be expensive. However, if it works, maybe I can get some done while he's away. So I don't know. What do you reckon? Do you think I should give it a go? Let me know in the comments. Life with the cats is life with the cats. I missed them a lot while I was gone. My husband would send me photographs of them on his lap, especially Jabari, because Jabari's mummy's boy. But it was really, really lovely to see them when I got back. There's some weird dynamics going on. We have a stray cat Friday. I call him Stray only just to refer to him because he's different to the others who we adopted or, rescued or whatever. But Friday arrived on our land as a stray about 2.5 years ago. And very, very slowly, he's got closer and closer. And over the past maybe 6 to 8 months, he started actually coming inside. He is extremely skittish. You cannot get anywhere near him. If you stand up while he's in the room, he's out like a shot. So he's super on guard. He is an elderly cat. You can really, really tell. He's not thin. Well, he eats everybody's food. If anybody leaves any food in their bowls, he goes around and he does a cleanup. So he's not thin. He's well fed. But he started to come inside, which was great, and they would all eat in their little designated places. And then when he was finished, he would pop out again, and that was fine. And then when we started doing the living room, there's a cat flap in between the kitchen and the room that goes into the living room. And the cats, we opened that up because we sealed off the upstairs. We've put a door at the bottom of the stairs now so that the cats can't go upstairs for all sorts of reasons. And he found the cat flap and he started going through into the living room. And we had a roll of, or a sheet of insulation that John was using to, put in the walls and up in the ceiling. And he started sleeping there. So we put a bed and we put a towel because we've got millions of cat beds. And every night he would come in and he would eat his dinner and then he would take himself off to bed. And we'd wake up in the morning and we'd come down the stairs and there he would be in his bed and we'd greet him. And then we'd go through and we'd have coffee, and then after a while he'd pop through and he'd have his breakfast and then he'd go out for the day. So we thought, well, that's fine. However, Half and Half, who's the black and white cat, he has always been extremely territorial. We had a very, very emotional rehoming of a stray cat that we rescued sometime in the past because Half and Half did not like her. And he did not like her to the point of blood. I mean, it got crazy. Anyway, she's been rehomed and I'm still in contact with the people and she's living her best life, which is fabulous. So we took it quite slow with Friday and Half, and we, I understand about having multiple cats and having multiple resources, and I understand that they're territorial. They had a couple of skits. There's a couple of shouting matches, when they don't actually touch each other, but they do the whole fluffy tails, and then they run off, and that's fine. I understand that they have to do that because that's how they sort themselves out. However, I don't like it if there's fights. And there were one or two downstairs in the kitchen, and I find it very distressing. And the other cats always get a big fright when... Anyway, and then I noticed what started happening is at night time when Half and Half was finished eating his dinner, he would go through into the living room and he would sit there. And Friday would go through like he used to, finish his dinner, take himself off to bed, and then he'd come out again. And then he'd go out, and he's not sleeping inside anymore. Now, whilst I'm grateful that they're not fighting, I'm sad because Friday's an old boy. It is winter, and whilst we have, barns and we have a cat house with a straw bed inside and everything, specifically for outdoor cats. He had a nice bed inside with a towel and it was nice and warm. So I'm sad that he's not sleeping inside. But at the same time, there's part of me that has to respect Half and Half, and he is protecting his territory. And as much as I can do to try and encourage him and, also, make sure that he knows that he's loved and he's got enough food and there's, lots of food around for everybody and many litter trays around for everybody. yeah, it's a bit sad. But anyway, it's not that Friday is sleeping outside in the snow. Like I said, we have got beds outside, and he is still eating three times a day. So as long as he's got some weight on his bones, he'll have a better chance than if he was just outside with no food. So anyway, cats are cats, and cats are cats. So that's it for this week's Whispers from the Countryside. If you enjoy this update, please do make sure you subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. And don't forget, if you'd like to receive my newsletter with the extra special animal communication insights, you can sign up using the link below. I'll be back next week for more Whispers from the Countryside. But until then, take a moment to pause, listen, connect with the world around you, and remember that life is precious. 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞. My weekly update where I share life in the beautiful blah 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 from the countryside. If you're new here, I'm Colleen, and this is my weekly update where I share. I'm Colleen, and this is my weekly update where I share.